Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to welcome you to the Career Game Loop interview series. We have been working on this book for the last couple of years, and we've created this interview series to bring to life all of the lessons that we've learned in almost a decade worth of upskilling people into jobs in the new economy. And there's no better way to kick this off than being joined today by two very, very special guests. What we're going to cover is learning not just about their own career paths, but what they've learned with a gamer mindset in getting their next job. So I'm thrilled to introduce Larry Hryb, who needs almost no introduction, Major Nelson. He leads our community here at Unity and is the first community manager ever to create the role. Larry, thanks for joining us.
Jessica, I'm so thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me. And I'm so excited to talk about this amazing book and be part of the conversation. Thank you.
Thanks so much. And Jackson Stevens. Jackson leads all of our live streaming events here at Unity. If you love seeing him today, you can find him on all of our Unity channels almost any day of the week. So Jackson, thanks again for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. Like Larry said, it's kind of an honor to be included in these types of conversations. Happy to share any of my own experiences, hoping that they maybe inspire or help other people along the way. Yeah, really looking forward to it. Jessica, before we dive in here, I feel like I need to know from you, why even go the route of writing this book?
I love that Jackson just goes into his element and can't be interviewed first off. He's
Sorry.
got to
I want the spotlight. I'm here to put it on you. You know what I mean? I want to put the spotlight on you.
Yeah.
In true Jackson form. So I wrote this book for one important reason. When I was young, centuries ago, I was raised with this fairy tale of if I worked really hard in school and I went to a great college, I would get a job and I'd live happily ever after. And nothing could have been further from the truth. And what I realized in my work, not just at Unity, but even before Unity, was that this myth is continuing to, be proselytized, not just in our cultures here in the US, but in every country we worked in. We get the opportunity to work in at Unity. And so I really wrote this book to demyth that message. And really just to get into the facts that really only a little under 40% of people actually go to college. Those half of them end up in jobs that they never needed a college degree for in the first place. They end up saddled with debt like I was. I didn't pay off my debt until, my early 40s. And there was no clear path and is no clear path for them. And I became even more concerned when I started speaking with people who did achieve kind of this goal of going to a quote unquote top university. They frankly, the calls I got from students from Princeton and Stanford and Harvard were almost more alarming because they hadn't failed before and they actually didn't know how to start navigating their careers. And so I really started searching for what is the right answer. And in my work at Unity, it was right under our nose, which is people who grew up gaming and really understood a gaming mindset, understand how to navigate careers today. And I wanted to bring to life just all of these lessons learned, not just from the US, but from the countries that we have the privilege of working in all around the world.
I also want to say that it's interesting because when you so graciously asked me to write the forward to the book. And when I read the book, I was like, oh, this makes so much sense. Like Jackson and I, and, everybody probably watching has played video games pretty much all their life, whether it's cards or whether it's the latest Call of Duty, whatever game, but they all have similar functions. And the title of the book, the game loop, that's what we call it in the games industry, which is how do you keep people engaged and going and playing the game. And I just think it was so brilliant to come up with this concept and then take it and just use everything that we've learned in gaming and apply it to your career, because at the end of the day, life is the ultimate game, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
I think it's very interesting as well. I grew up my entire life being told that games were a waste of time, but now I can point to this book and say, look how far games are going to get me here. So, Jessica, I know it was a massive undertaking and a huge group effort here. So, how did this book get written? What was that process?
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, Wiley Publishing came to me and asked if I would write a book around the importance of continuous learning throughout our career. And I sort of thought that's a given. But the fact that they're asking me this means it's not a given. And there's a much larger story to be told here. Again, gamers are continuously learning because they just jump into a game and you have to learn a whole new set of rules. But there were all these other things, how to navigate uncertainty, how to build community, how to problem solve and create strategy on the fly that gamers were able to do. And so we really turned this into a book about how to navigate your career with a gamer mindset. And we decided to write it not just from my point of view, because I am not the only voice. What we've learned from our community at Unity is that it really takes this kind of broader ecosystem approach to understand a problem from every angle and then understand the solution. So we worked with the broader Unity community. We worked with the thousands of schools and programs and workforce organizations that upskill people into jobs in the new economy. And of course, our employees, and brought to light the lessons learned from all of our work, as well as these just incredibly motivating stories. So it was really written as a collective.
Which I think is so valuable and so important that it's not just one person's experience. This is the experience of dozens of people, if not more, right? I think that there just adds such a level of concreteness to the experience and the advice that people are going to take away from this. Jessica, what are the hopes and dreams of this book? You've spent so much time pulling everyone together and sharing everyone's story. Now you're finally putting it out there. What do you hope that we see from this?
So I think first and foremost, as I said, I just want this myth to go away. I want us to be preparing young people, not just in schools, but more importantly in our communities and our cultures, that the careers and the opportunities we have today are inordinate compared to careers 50 years ago. So there's just enormous opportunity. Secondly, I'd love to continue building on the momentum. We see all these sparks of innovation around the world in people and programs to really understand how to navigate this. But of course, from what I've learned from both of you and the broader Unity community, I want to create a community around this so everyone can connect with peers and mentors and coaches to help guide you, every step of your career. And then ultimately, I really want to reach you. I really want to reach the person who needs that next step, who really has to feel like they can understand a world that they just haven't been able to see before. And then although we target these towards gamers and everyone's like, I'm not a gamer, I'm not spending hours doing this. The bottom line is everyone's a gamer.
Yep.
Whether you're playing Wordle or whether you're playing Crazy Eights, these lessons really apply. And so all of us can understand this and really feel empowered to take agency over our careers.
I also want to point something out is that, obviously it's about you're taking the concepts that millions and millions of video gamers have learned and applying them to your career. This isn't just about how do you get a job in the video game industry. This is how do you get a job at all, because or not at all, but I'm just saying in many other fields, because there's a lot of similarities for job hunting. And look, job hunting is exactly, you refer to this, Jessica, in the book. It's a quest. And how do you go out and who are you going to find as the quest giver, and how are you going to go be successful at that quest, regardless whether it's in the video game industry or health industry or whatever industry you choose. So it's very helpful for everybody.
Speaking of quest, I'm actually going to take over from Jackson, turn the table. So Jackson, I'd love to hear from you, who's somebody is a little bit more close to the beginning of your career than I am.
Mm-hmm.
Could you walk us through your career journey so far, and what was your quest when you started off, and where has it landed?
Yeah, so I've been in the games industry now as a community manager a little over 3 years. And for me, the quest, the initial thing that I was chasing was I just wanted to be working in a field that I was passionate about. The pandemic had just kind of hit. I was forced to hit a reset button, and I went into service and hospitality. And while I really enjoyed it, at the end of the day, it just wasn't my passion. And I always knew that gaming and community spaces were my passion. So that's kind of where I refocused my efforts and where I initially just turned that page and decided that I really wanted to feel engaged in my job every day. And yeah, 3 years of time in the industry, and I'm super grateful for the opportunities afforded to me, but it was kind of starting from zero. I didn't have a university or college education in anything comms related or games industry specific. And it was a process of just trying to meet people and understand their experiences, and from that seek any advice I could really get on where people thought my opportunities would come. For me, I was super fortunate that community management was a very natural fit for me. And I had started my own live stream community at the beginning of the pandemic. And I often thought of that as just a hobby and something for me to stay connected to people and create a fun and enjoyable space for a lot of people. And it turned out to be the kind of catalyst and the foot in the door for me to make it into the games industry as a community manager.
I love how your sense of purpose, like, the impact you wanted to make, and then also your hobby and your passion actually came in to guide you. We hear that so many times, of course, because we work a lot with people who grew up playing video games and want to make them. But just seeing you make that transition into getting your hobby to be your full-time career. What was your career before community manager, or your job before community manager?
I can already see Larry smiling along here. Prior to the pandemic was a big reset button for me because I couldn't do my previous career. For the 9 years prior to the pandemic in 2020, I was a skater with Disney on Ice. So
Hold on. I'm sorry. Could you say that one more time?
I was a professional figure skater performing around the world with Disney on Ice. So yeah, the pandemic said, no, you can't perform, and no, you can't travel. So I said, okay, I guess I have to.
By the way, I
next
just
step.
want to point something out. I don't know anything about professional skating, but I can imagine skating is difficult enough. Having to do it in a character or in a costume is even harder. So congratulations on that, Jackson.
Thanks, Larry. I really appreciate that.
That is unbelievable. And you're a testament to, every time we open the door to ask for people's stories and to understand where they came from, we were always seeing the same consistent theme of reskilling into totally unexpected opportunities that you never thought were possible.
Yeah.
So how did you actually decide to become a professional figure skater?
My story differed from a lot of people. Most of the people that I toured with, incredibly talented, competed their entire lives, really successful. And then show skating seems like the eventuality of most figure skaters if they want to kind of do it as a career. For me, I grew up playing hockey, and it wasn't until I was 20 years old that I was like, I bet I could be a professional figure skater. And somehow I did it. For me, it was a lot of connections. It was a lot of selling myself. The average audition tape for a Disney on Ice skater is probably like 2 to 3 minutes. And it's like, hey, look at me do all of my tricks. My audition video was 13 minutes long. And it literally opened with me in a leather bound chair next to a fireplace reading a book. And I went, didn't see you there. And I just talked for most of this video, and I talked my way into it, is what I like to think. But again, it was the network. I was dating someone at the time who was a skater with Disney on Ice. So through that experience, I got to know a lot of the people who had done it for years, and I picked their brains about what would allow me to be successful. How would I get my foot in the door? What sort of skills would I need to show and kind of share? So yeah, I got hired and was woefully underqualified, and just worked for 9 years to get better and better and better. Wow. And then by the end of it, I had actually accomplished things that I never dreamed that I possibly would have.
And I think you're bringing to life just the key lesson around it's all about community. When you're looking for your next opportunity, if you're throwing in a resume, it's 1 in 200 probability that you're going to get that job. If you're doing it through your community, it's 1 in 12. And so your odds are just so much better by building and networking with your community.
Yeah, absolutely.
How did you, choose figure skating or community manager, but how did you understand how to level up into that career?
It was tough. I really, especially when I started into Disney on Ice, and again, just really outside of my element, outside of my comfort zone, kind of feeling like I was barely treading water sometimes. It was really challenging, but I really relied on the network and relied on the team for me. I grew up again playing hockey. I also played lacrosse. These team sports and this team mentality has really always serviced me very well. It's how can I support other people, and when do I need to lean on them as well? So especially at the beginning of my skating career, knowing that I was floundering a little bit, just a little Disney pun for you all. knowing that I was floundering a little bit and wanted to stop feeling like the weakest link, I tapped into the people who had done it for years, who had done it for decades. And I remember having a very pivotal conversation with my performance director at the time and said, I want to stop being bad at this. Like, what is the next step for me? And just relying on their expertise and their knowledge. And it was the same when I kind of became a community manager and got my foot in the door. I knew how to do things my way, but it was such a small scope compared to the size of the industry and the particular needs of each individual game. And it was relying on the people who had the experience and the knowledge. And even if it wasn't my immediate team, the people immediately surrounding me, reaching out to people doing similar work and picking their brain about how they're doing things. And it's a very mutually beneficial experience and conversation to have, to share what you're doing that works and asking what they're doing that works and what you can be doing better.
And when you were floundering either in the community manager or professional ice skating role, that I love, by the way, that I get to say those in one sentence, was it floundering technically, like you were falling, or was it more how you were working with the team or how you were communicating?
It was a very personal experience in the sense that I think professionally relationships were all managed very well, but I really struggled with not feeling that I could perform at the level that I wanted to. And it's not necessarily external pressures for me. At that time, it was I wanted to succeed and I wanted to thrive. And it was kind of a circumstance where I needed to take a step back and realize I needed to walk before I could run. So that difficulty really came from setting my own expectations way higher than they needed to be and going into a space where people were professionals and were experts in their field and were doing it for decades, and me expecting to step up and reach that level on such a short timeline. So really reevaluating my own expectations was a massive step in, honestly, in checking my ego a little bit and being like, you can't always be the best at everything that you want to do. But I kind of subscribe to the thought process in those early days of, I won't be the most talented. I might not be the most qualified, but I will be the hardest working person in this room. And it has served me so well in the 15 years since.
Excellent. That's so exciting. I mean, I love one of the key principles that we hear time and time again is failing forward. Just that moment where you feel really at a loss, and how are you reaching out and understanding quickly what you can do to improve and learn and be able to create more forward momentum than you would have had if you hadn't failed in the first place.
Yeah. It honestly, it caused a transformation for me in those first few years where I was like, oh, I'm not skating well. I'm falling down a lot. This is bad. How am I going to find other skills to present my worth? And that's when I came into like a public relations side of things and doing a lot of interviews and doing a lot of promotion for the shows, which led to more responsibility in the following years, which then became the transferable skill that I used most in going into community management, being able to speak to people, being able to engage with people. So yeah, it was kind of this experience of, I didn't know what was going to benefit me in the long run, but just trying to diversify that skill set was so helpful.
Thanks so much, Jackson. Any other words of wisdom before we turn the tables on Larry?
I mean, for me, it's check your ego, work hard, and be patient. It's a hard combination of things to put together, especially when you're working hard and you want to see dividends. But that patience is definitely going to be key, and just keep working for it.
Excellent. Thanks so much.
Of course.
All right, Larry, you wrote so many amazing tips in the foreword that you have in the book. I feel like the foreword in and of itself should be why people get this book. One of the key ones was the importance of resilience and adaptability. You have so many incredible moments in your career. Can you think of maybe one, whether it's at Xbox or somewhere else, that really brings to life message?
Part of it is, first of all, thank you for your kind words there. And it's always great to share the screen with you and Jackson. Part of it, the resilience that I've noticed is, this, at the end of the day, I'm a hardcore nerd. And there's a lot of nerds out there that know that technology changes quickly. So I really strap myself to that side of it in terms of, as technology changed, I was changing. Jessica, you and I were fortunate, or perhaps unfortunate enough, to be working before the internet, right? So we recognized what that was all about. So I saw these moments with the internet that could unlock opportunities for me professionally, and I dug in. And I'll never forget this. I remember going to the bookstore, what's that? And buying a book on HTML because I'm like, I can figure this out. And just sitting down and making the mistakes and learning and figuring things out as I did. And I was not embarrassed to raise my hand and go, how do I do this? I don't understand this. And there wasn't like it is today where you can just hop on a Discord channel or jump in a forum. There was like not really a lot of resources out there before the internet really matured. So, as far as answer your question of like, what are some of the moments where I had to like respawn myself and rethink myself? That happens so frequently. When I joined, when I started in broadcasting, I spent most of the 90s in broadcasting. Broadcasting was evolving and changing and looked nothing like it did at the beginning. And then I realized, broadcasting is going to adopt the technology with streaming. And that's how I made the jump into Microsoft. Is Microsoft saw that I was one of the early adopters of streaming and experimenting. Was I doing it all right? Absolutely not. But I was learning. So I was ahead of the curve on everybody else. And that's the most important thing is try and fail. Jackson talked about, and you talked about failing forward. Just try something, try things again, say yes to everything. I've done a lot of speeches in my career where I tell people, just say yes to everything, learn everything. When I was in radio, I learned how to change the light bulbs at the top of the transmitter. I learned how to produce a show. I learned what audio mixing is like. And I did that all because I wanted to learn everything and just absorb everything. There's at no point in my career did I say, that's not really my job. My attitude is, oh, okay, how do I do that? And then find an expert that can help me shepherd it. So there's so many moments. I don't know if that kind of answers your question, but I kind of wanted to show that, the resilience is part of saying yes and getting out of your comfort zone. Okay, it's okay. Get comfortably uncomfortable.
And I also really hear the curiosity. I mean, that is the consistent theme I'm hearing from.
Yeah, without a doubt. And that's part of who I am. Jackson and you and I work together all the time, and I'm always asking the questions of like, how does this work? Why does that work? Why do we need to do it like that? Or is there another way to do this? Maybe there isn't. Maybe this is the best way to do it. I don't know. But there must be. Usually, there's a way to build a better mousetrap.
So, similar question. You also wrote about just the focus on problem solving and persistence, that tenacity and grit, the grind, oftentimes, as we say in gaming. So if you were giving somebody advice, early in their career, how should they think through that?
They should think like, look, it's your career. You own it. You are the CEO of your life. So you have to make and own all of the decisions. Your mom's not going to help you. Your dad's not going to help you. They can certainly talk to you a little bit, but you're the one at the end of the day who has to put, as somebody who's hired hundreds, if not thousands of people in my career, I'm looking for those people that are self-starters that can get in there and roll up their sleeves and go, okay, what are we doing? What needs to be done? When I was young, someone told me, I want somebody who works for me, that was me, who comes to me with solutions, not problems. Mm-hmm. And certainly you can go, hey, I've got this challenge. I think I should do this. What do you think? And then you can learn from somebody who's more experienced. But there's just so many ways that you can learn by just experimenting and getting out of your comfort zone and trying to figure out. I always ask this really critical question, and Jackson's heard it, and I know Jessica, you've heard it as well from me. And anybody that's heard me talk publicly, what's the problem we're trying to solve? Because sometimes you get into a meeting with 5 or 10 people and they all think there's different problems we're trying to solve. No. This is the problem we're trying to solve. Oh, and that opens up and all of a sudden provides clarity and the path forward. So that's something I always like to ask is, what is the problem we're trying to solve? And making sure that we're all on the same page, because we may assume we are, but let's articulate it the best we can as well. So
true. And speaking of getting out of your comfort zone, if we Google you, there's this photo that comes up. I think you're in the Middle East somewhere.
Yeah.
So tell us about what that was and how you really got out of your comfort zone there.
Yeah, well, that was about a decade ago when I was asked to join Electronic Arts EA when Rock Band was a big game. They were doing an event with the U.S. government who had deployed a bunch of troops into Iraq. And they said, do you want to go to Iraq? Now, at this point, I didn't have any children. So I was like, yeah, why not? What could possibly go wrong? Well, and I went over there, and it was about the game again, about games. The common denominator was there were people on the base that really enjoyed games, and this was bringing them together to create the magic of games. Was I scared? Yes, but it never really came into focus until I was issued a bulletproof helmet and a bulletproof jacket. and we got on board a C-130, and we had to do what was called a combat landing into Baghdad. Now, if you don't know what a combat landing is, that is normally when you're on an airplane, you kind of land and go, it's very okay, everybody great, and taxi up and get off. But this is designed as you're going down in the aircraft to evade any possible people on the ground from shooting missiles at you. So you're essentially bobbing and weaving in a C-130 going hundreds of miles an hour, and then you slam onto the ground. Now, mind you, I'm in the back of this aircraft. It's not like I can look out the window and see what's going on. You're in a cargo aircraft. Cargo means no windows. So I'm just buckled in with a couple hundred other folks in the Marines and the Army and the Air Force and the Navy to make this landing. So it was very off-putting, but I did it. And was it comfortable? No, but I learned.
So as the leader of Unity's community, your own community, where you have over 1 million followers, give us advice on how to build community.
Well, the rule number one, and it sounds so ridiculous, but you have to show up. I've seen many companies and work with many companies, not just gaming companies, but companies across the world, who they're like, well, how do we engage? Hey, just show up. You may not have all the answers, but just showing up, posting, saying, I'm here to listen, let's talk. That goes a long way, because especially in consumer products, there's a lot of people that are talking about the product and trying to understand it, but they don't have anybody from the company to engage with. And that's what it's about. And so when I started with Xbox, it's like, all right, we got this great product. Let's lean in. Now, this was before Twitter, before Facebook, before YouTube. I mean, I know that sounds like a million years ago, and it kind of was. But this was in an era where there really wasn't that peer-to-peer conversation, where the companies weren't talking to consumers. Now it's de rigueur. I mean, it happens all the time. But when I started, it didn't. And I had to teach a lot of people, hey, we're going to show up. We're not going to have all the answers. We can't say yes all the time, but we're going to listen. And that's what we had to do. So
any closing thoughts, any last pieces of advice as we embark on this series and getting this book into the world?
Well, I've done some talking. Jackson, why don't you talk, and then I will go ahead and bring up my final thoughts.
I mean, it's natural that Larry and I are both community managers here, but I can't, I think, sing the praises of community enough that you will get so much further when you are looking to help others than you could ever possibly expect. It was actually advice that Larry gave me in a conversation we had a few weeks ago, that you never know when someone's going to return to your life. Treat everyone with kindness, look to help as many people as you can, and don't hope that that benefits you in the long run, but I can almost guarantee that it will. That your kindness and your effort and your willingness to help is going to shine through, and you're going to afford a lot of opportunities for yourself just by doing so.
Yeah, to you, thank you, Jackson. It's karma. When I left Microsoft before I joined Unity, I had about a year off, and I talked to a lot of different people just about their career, whether they're in the games industry, and I helped them along. I didn't want anything from it. It's not like it's transactional. I don't like transactional relationships. I like deep, meaningful relationships as best you can. But at the end of the day, when I was working at Microsoft, even before then, I always treated everybody as if they could be the next CEO of Microsoft, the CEO of Apple, the next president of the United States, whoever they are. There's a reason that they came into your life, and make sure that you make them feel good about it, and then you can feel good about that connection.
Such a great messages from both of you. Building community and doing so with respect and investment in everyone that you meet.
Yeah,
thank you.
Well, thank you. And the book is incredible. I was so thrilled to write the foreword to it, Jessica. You've done a great job of modernizing the career journey and helping people speaking in the language that they understand. So I urge folks, pre-order now. Slam the pre-order button if there is one around here.
All right. Well, Jackson, Larry, thank you both so much. This was a great kickoff to the series on the Career Game Loop. And stay tuned, everyone. Our next episode coming up is with James Stone, the ultimate career game looper, as you learn about his journey from IT professional to detective to internationally renowned photographer, and ultimately to Unity game developer. So thanks again. Stay tuned. We'll see everybody soon. Bye-bye.